And this is, well, probably one of the maddest vehicles of the day, actually. It is a Pigeon, except longer, with a massive V8 and drag tires and a wheelie bar. Yes, this is the drag Pigeon. It's one of the maddest mods I have ever seen, including the Firehawk we had last time on the first part of this. It's mental. And it's stupidly fast accelerating. I mean, it's a blisteringly fast accelerating vehicle. However, there is one downside. You see, it's very grippy, which means when you turn a corner, it grip rolls. A lot. It's not very easy to drive, shall we say. It does actually still work at this point, despite being for a massive roll. It set itself on fire, but that's not the point. The point is, this was a terrifying vehicle to drive, because the drag tires used in the mod are so absurdly grippy, and since it's a tricycle going at 100 miles an hour into a corner, it just falls over at a slight move of the stick from the steering. It's just a little flick and it goes over. It's absolutely terrifying. When it doesn't go over, like you saw there, you lose so much speed. It's just right on a nice edge when driving, and then it still rolls over. It is absolutely darn near undrivable at high speed. Now, on a straight line and a drag strip, it's fine. But on this road, it is a nightmare to drive. It is so terrifying. Because a minuscule movement of the stick, the steering, just results in you either going on two wheels and being out of control, or rolling over and being out of control. There is a 1 or 2% leeway in actual usable steering. And it's just abysmal. I mean, I love it. It's one of the maddest vehicles I have ever seen. And I love the map maker for doing that, but it's not exactly drivable. And once you do get it to the end of the straight, if you somehow manage to not roll it, you are so focused on not rolling it, and it's going so fast, you don't have time to stop and you hit the wall. So it's a very, 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 very difficult balancing act that you have to get right, but eventually, I think this was by far the longest of this session, if you will, the second part. Took over 10 minutes to get this run completed, which is actually longer than it took for the reversing Kashira. Now, it was blisteringly fast, certainly in acceleration. If this thing had some handling, it would be a 200-mile-an-hour rocket ship, but it doesn't have the handling. So, it is very fast, very scary, and yet very awesome at the same time. Now, this is the next vehicle, and it's pretty iconic. It's called the Hirochi Prasu, but everyone knows it more as the Toyota Supra Mark IV. Yes, and now that Toyota's back on Horizon 4, I no longer have to make jokes about that, because the first section was recorded before the announcement that the Supra was back. So, yeah. And I'll be honest, it was not the best start. I was a bit of an idiot. We did have a quite tame accident, all things considered. I mean, sure, it did have quite an endo, but for all things considered, that was a pretty tame accident. And I must say, for being a turbocharged track-ready monster, it was very controllable. I really liked it. It was fast, but not crazy fast. It had handling, it didn't roll over all the time, and it could get up to speeds of excess of 140 miles an hour. And it can even drive going across the dirt. I mean, it was a win-win-win, and we get it stopped nice and easily, maybe a little bit early on the brakes, but it wasn't too bad. I do almost spin off a cliff, but all in all, the Prasu, damn good vehicle for speedrunning, all in all. Not the fastest, but very good handling. Well-deserved celebratory donuts. We have a Mazda RX7, but this is no ordinary RX7. This is a Super GT spec, which means a wide body can a massively turbocharged quad rotor. I'm not sure that this is an actual quad rotor in the game, because I don't think Beam has that technology to replicate that, but it's pretty damn awesome mod, and again, it was quite fast. Like the Supra before, the RX7 was not slow. but it wasn't quite as controllable. It was a bit more oversteery, shall we say. That makes sense. Yeah, they modeled it like a four-rotor, but it wasn't really a four-rotor in the game. Still a fantastic model. It looks great, it deforms very nicely. But it was not quite as easy to drive as, say, the Supra. Now that's mainly the Supra being so good at driving. And this one I actually got a very good run up until I braked. And braking on the dirt is a bad thing, okay? Trying to get stopped on the dirt is not exactly how you stop very well. So, RX7 might have hit the wall there, but it was, you know, for being much more powerful and much lighter than the Supra, it did do it surprisingly good. I did, hit the dirt. I got away with it somehow, then I just had to get on the brakes, and, I didn't get away with going on that dirt. I tried to stop it, I almost got it stopped, and then I went in the wall hard. Yeah. But I did get a clean run as expected, really. It didn't take too long for this, only took a few minutes. Because it's not bad. You see it gets wheel spin, sure, but we're dealing with 40 PSI of boost, we're getting up to 170 miles an hour. And it can get on the brakes, and it gets it stopped nice and easily, so... Yeah, RX7 looks fantastic, incredibly fast, and surprisingly easy on the brakes. We have one last of the Japanese JDM legends. This is the R34 Skyline. And this is the top-of-the-line V-Spec 2 model, full-on Fast and Furious-esque, although without delivery this time. And this was much similar to the Supra in this one, turbocharged, but this one is all-wheel drive with all-wheel steering, which means it should be pretty good in the corners. And it is. The one thing it's not good at is crashing. You see, when you crash, as tends to happen on this course, funnily enough, it does more than crash the car. Yeah, that's a game broken, so, as much as I love it, I wasn't gonna run it again with a broken game, so it got, the first DNF, shall we say. We go from a game-breaking Japanese supercar to an American supercar, the Dodge Viper. Now, this is from the configuration, I should point out, none of these mods have been tinkered with besides the configuration settings they come with. And this is called the top speed version. It's massively powerful with NOS, with a big old supercharger on it. So yeah, it has a lot of oversteer to the point where I really don't need NOS. I decided to try the NOS on this run after nearly losing the back end, and then yeah, no, that was not a good idea. It kind of looks like the Shelby Daytona from the left-hand side. It's very curved in that way. Yeah. This was going to be a tough one. Very similar to the AE86 from earlier. This has stupid amounts of power, rear-wheel drive, and it's not quite controllable. That's a tree and a rock. It got so much wheel spin. It was in 5th gear getting wheel spin. Wheel spin in 5th gear is stupid. And it spits much fight, which is very cool, but, yeah, it was a struggle. I mean, just trying to get power down in any way was a nightmare. I mean, my controller doesn't help. My controller isn't the best when it comes to putting power down, because it's very on-off, if you will, the stick, or not the stick, the, throttle, but it doesn't matter for this. It doesn't matter at all. It's a fiery mess now, but it doesn't matter. It took a bit, it didn't take as long as the, nearly as long as the drag Pigeon, but it took a fair bit of time. Simply because you couldn't put the power down. Trying to put the power down is like trying to drive a front-wheel drive car on ice. It doesn't really work very well. And I did actually get a clean run, eventually, but it took so much carefulness with the throttle. You get so used to how much percentage of the throttle can I put down before it spins out and crashes. That was a very difficult thing to master. But once you got it right, it was pretty quick. It was a pretty quick car. I'm not gonna complain about it. It was pretty quick. Not exceptionally quick, especially for how much power it had, and how much speed it supposedly had in a straight line if you didn't have these curves and infinite runway. But it it needed more traction. It needed all-wheel drive is what it really needed. It needed all-wheel drive, then it could maybe take the corners, get some power down. But nice to see an American muscle car on here. Well, American super muscle car. We go from a maniacal Dodge Viper to a maniacal Caterham. This is called the Superlight Thingy. I forget the exact name for it. It's the, can I see if I can remember it? I don't remember it. I wrote it down somewhere. Anyway, it's basically a Caterham, and can I just say this mod is epic. I mean, it has a fully functioning, like, lighting system for shifting, with a fully functional digital tachometer on the steering wheel that turns when you move. That's freaking awesome. It was also very quick, because it was supercharged, and it weighed less than 1,000 kilograms. So it was stupid quick, and yet stupid awesome. It's one of the most detailed mods I have seen in a very long time. There's a few of these, like, mods that have the display, the heads-up display thingy, if you will. But those are usually Formula 1 cars. This is a road wheel car based off a real car. And I just think that's the coolest thing in the world. But going back to the handling, it has a wing and it has a splitter and it's very useful and all. It doesn't really help that much. It's a very fast car. It's a very fast car without having much power. It has less than 350 horsepower. And we're going 165 miles an hour and then it flies. Yeah, it's very light, so when it crashes really hard and flies really high. That was some impressive height from the Caterham there. But, it can get quite a amount of wheel spin. It is very unforgiving. You turn a little bit too harshly and it snaps on you. It does a full-on snap, and then you're a passenger at that point. You can't really correct it. So, it is an absolute glorious mod. But it is a little bit difficult to drive. That's 160 miles an hour, get on the brakes, and I just about got to stop. That's the wheels on the dirt. That's as close as you can get, really. But the absolutely fantastic Caterham mod is finished. Remember the 200BX Demon that we had on the, first one? Well, this is the Demon taken to the nth degree. It's called the 200BX Death Cart. It is basically a crazily turbocharged, crazy powerful engine shoved onto the lightest body you possibly can get while still calling it a car. It has no body panels but the fenders, has a roll cage, has no windshield or doors or lights or anything like that. It is just an engine, some seats, and a wheel. And that means it's very fast, and just like the Viper, very oversteery. And when you're heading on a cliff, that can be a bit of an issue. Amazingly, I stopped it from going off the cliff initially before it eventually slid off, but yeah, that's mad. And also the roll cage, I would like it to be a little bit stronger. You would be having a very disappointing day if you were in that vehicle. And just like the Viper and its wheel spinning issues, this could not take a corner at speed. You can see there a little bit too much on the throttle around a corner, and it just spins the wheels. Amazingly, I get very lucky. We hit a bump. This vehicle has very stiff suspension. I hit a bump, and somehow it didn't roll me over or cause me any incidents when I hit that. And yeah, so I survived that and then hit the rock face. Amazingly, the engine still worked, and it spun and wheel. But yeah, that was a pretty trashed vehicle at that point. This was interesting. I like it. It's a very interesting vehicle. I can't really call it a car, it's a vehicle. But it just doesn't have the grip. It needs like 315s on the rear instead of 295s. I thought I was gonna get, if I was just about 2 inches to the back, to the left, I would have cleared that and it would have been absolutely epic. As such, I crashed and then my wheel ran away from me. Yeah, not really ideal. This took a lot of tries. It was probably the second longest it took to get a clean run out of this, because there are just so many instances of turning a corner, wheel spin, and crash. Turning a corner, wheel spin, and crash. But I did eventually, by the grace of God, get a clean run. It was terrifying and it required a lot of throttle management. Luckily, I had some experience with that because of the Viper. But yeah, it took a lot of time, and it was fast. It was a very quick car, but it did take a lot of work before I could, get a clean run with that vehicle. We have quite the racing vehicle today. This is the Superlight Corsa. Now, it's technically a Ferrari F40 Competition, which is a glorious vehicle, and it shares a lot of components: the crazy wing, the lightweight, and the massively turbocharged V8 with enough turbo lag, well, to be considered a typical video game lobby. And it is also incredibly quick, provided you can get that turbo power to the wheels. And if you can, it's glorious. If you can't, you have an accident. That time I was just an idiot and turned too much to the right. That was that incident. But all in all, it was pretty good. And I had a bit of a bad day. But you can just see the sheer wheel spin you gotta deal with, and it's just, yeah, that was the quickest accident I had out of all the runs, including future and past for mods and normal cars. The wheel spin was a real problem, at least off the launch. You can just see, trying to get the turbo down was an extremely difficult feat, but once you got it down, it was actually very nice to drive. I'll be honest, it was very nice to drive. I was not expecting that. I was expecting it to be terrible, but you can see here, I'm actually almost to the point of turning the corner. If I was just had a little bit less understeer, I could have made it, but that's a faceplant to the rock. But it actually took less than 3 minutes to get a clean run. And again, once you get that turbo power down off the launch, it's pretty easy. Despite being a massively turbocharged, massively powerful, lightweight racing car, similar to the Mazda, it's very quick. It's very quick indeed. It just took a bit to get there, that's all. Yeah, so there you go. Pretty brutal in power delivery, but pretty good in the handling department. This is an interesting one. This is a Moonhawk, but it's a Moonhawk stock car. Definitely not based off of any Richard Petty vehicles at all, so it's Jeff Petty instead, obviously. And this has the potential to be very quick. The normal stock car in the game wasn't actually that impressive, but this racing one, this mod one, hopefully was going to be better. Unfortunately, there was a bit of an issue. There was so much turbo pressure, or supercharger pressure probably, that it blew the engine. Yeah. The mod maker has a bit of an issue. You see, the turbo is, I'm just gonna say it's a turbo supercharger, whatever. The forced induction, is too much for the engine to handle. So as you're driving, even when you're trying to short shift, it just kills the car, and then it regretfully spins to a stop, so whoopsie. The penultimate car isn't really a car. This started out life as a Bolide, but they've taken weight reduction to the nth degree. It's called the Bolide Stripped Chassis, and it's literally that. It's a chassis with a seat, an engine. You thought the death cart was stripped out? No, this says, really the only thing we can take off more is the exhausts. That's it. So pros, it is extremely fast because it's very aerodynamic and very light. Cons, if you happen to hit a slight bump, you have zero aerodynamic aid at all to help you negotiate that bump, and then you die. And that was a common theme, really. You see, since it has no bodywork at all, it also means it has no aerodynamics at all. So, it is, let's just say, difficult to drive at high speed. And it didn't really work very well. It functioned as a car in the loosest definition. It was very quick, not very good handling, but on the plus side, since it was so light and it had brakes designed for a car, not a chassis, it did stop on a dime. Which is good when you're heading towards a wall at 150 miles an hour. But there were a few fatalities before we got to that mythical clean run. This one actually did didn't do too bad. It actually was pretty nice all in all, for what it is. I mean, the aerodynamics is a massive problem, I said earlier. Its stat is very irritating, but if you exclude the aerodynamic instability, it's not too bad. The handling is decent, because it is a supercar at the end of the day, but the aerodynamic handling, if you will, is just what lets it down. That's its biggest issue. But it did get a clean run, as you can see here, and we get it stopped. Not too bad. I would say cutting a little bit close, but it's negotiable. And our final vehicle of the day is actually a combination of two. You see, this is an ETK 100 series, but it is a police car with a twin turbocharged V12 in it. All-wheel drive, and that's just too easy. So I put a trailer on the back of it. Yeah. Now the car can easily do 150 plus. The trailer can't. You see, as you can see, just a slight turn causes all sorts of problems with the trailer. And the debris actually catches up to me after a little while. So we're going to see some very satisfying incidents. Not very many drivability, if you will, incidents. This, surprisingly, didn't take too long. I don't know how it didn't take too long, but this was actually one of the easier runs in terms of length of time it took to get a clean run. Which is weird, because the trailer, as you can see, I'm just going straight at this point, pretty much. And the trailer has a mind of its own. It is just a dog, and its tail is wagging. It did lead to some very epic crashes, like, I mean, well done, 10 on 10 stunt for the barrel roll there. But at any speed, in a straight, above 90 miles an hour, in a straight line, the trailer starts to wobble, because it doesn't have very much aerodynamics. And then as you reach a corner at 100 miles an hour, it starts to fishtail, like a dog, a very excited dog. And trying to control a trailer swaggling around like mad at 100 miles an hour is not very easy, funnily enough. So, it took quite a... I didn't say it took quite a while. It took a bit of time getting used to it, and once you got used to it, you just had to be careful. And once you were careful, it was actually very easy. So as you can see, it got a clean run, and then we just had a nice, glorious shot of slow motion trailer destruction, because it's caused me a fair bit of irritation. And although the crashes it gave were aesthetically pleasing, I needed some good old trailer destruction, so slow motion always helps. So, on to our final results. The fastest vehicle, unsurprisingly, the FR16, 246 miles an hour, is blistering. Now, I'm not going to say all these results, because there are a long list of results, so I'm just going to list them out over a few slides, and you can fast forward or slow down whenever you want. Second place will be the Pigeon Pro car, 182 miles an hour, a fair way down on that Formula 1 car. Podium would be the only one of only two non-mod cars to be in the top 5, both the Burnside and the Moonhawk dragsters being in 3rd and 4th. 5th place, a van, the Kashira, doing 168 miles an hour. It's only 1 mile an hour slower than the Burnside. In a van, sure, it's got 2,500 horsepower, 4-wheel drive, and a massive wing, but it's still a van at the end of the day. Now, here's the interesting one. The K-Series, the modified V12 crazy one, was significantly faster than its normal police car K-Series. About 30 miles an hour faster. That's a lot. And the Viper was tied, actually, with the drag Pigeon. Both of them doing 161 miles an hour, getting them in very similar yet very different ways. Very uncontrollable in very different ways in those regards. One of them falling over the other one having too much wheel spin. So, less needs more grip and the other one needs less grip. We do have a 3-way tie for 14th, 15th, and 16th still. with the Pizima Hill Climb, the Jado Bus, and the ESBR4, because, you know, why not? We have another three-way tie for 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, with the SBR4 Piccolina, the hatchback with the V8 with the V6 in it, the Firehawk, and the Pizima Sport all doing 143 miles an hour. So for the same top speed, you can have a machine gun wielding, six-wheeled, and fighter plane propelled muscle car, or a really sporty sedan. Yeah. There were a few other notable ones. The Bolide chassis actually got 130 miles an hour, which is pretty good. The Satsuma did beat the Pigeon by 3 miles an hour, doing 107 miles an hour. Ooh. The more interesting thing is the ETK 800 series, with the trailer attached to it, did the exact same top speed as the Ram Plow semi-truck, and it was faster than the Hopper. So, a sporty version of an SUV is slower than an estate car with a trailer on it that couldn't be controlled very well. That kind of says it all about SUVs, really. And then we have the only vehicles to lose to the Hopper Sport. The Moonhawk with its engine exploding, that got a DNF. And then the poor Nissan GTR breaking literally everything, including the game itself. Yeah, not good. So there we go. There's 48 cars tested. Several from mods, several from the game. That is pretty much the most thorough speed test of any sort ever conducted on this game. I'm very proud of that. So, if you want to go fast with a mod, use a Formula 1 car. If you want to go fast without a mod, go with a drag car. And if you want to go fast while still being in some form of control, go with the K-Series mod car. Very useful information for the next time you're going speedrunning at a wall. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back with more.